Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Media Show. I'll be your host for today, I'm Nick Calavita, and we're going to discuss a very interesting topic dealing with the media, which is advertising, especially advertising just not in the United States, but also advertising around the world. We have seen a big demographic shift in advertising, that the amount that has been going to social media and to streaming media like ourselves has moved up from what was about 2.6 billion in 2018 to over 18 billion in 2020. So what we've, in 2022. So what we have seen is this particular demographic shift. And also we're looking at even more of a shift in that more people are tending to watch not just streaming media, they've also started to go away from places not like Netflix. So what they have to do is reinvent themselves. Netflix was scheduled to actually increase about 2.5 million viewers, and instead they went down to, what was it? It was a pretty poor number. It was around, well, they lost 200,000. So they've had some pretty poor performances. So we've actually seen some changes in that area as well. So on Monday, we're going to have a lot of things to talk about regarding the media and in terms of advertising. Now, what we found out also in advertising, you can actually place ads inside of your show. And if you do this on Vimeo, they ask questions: did you put it in or did you not put it in? It becomes pretty interesting. So media has done this. If you ever go check Binge or even what do they call it? What's the name of that thing? The Google and Bing, they actually put in the ads inside of the shows. So the thing is, you don't know if you're clicking on an ad or not. With that, Bill Denko will not be joining us today, but Bill is the co-author of The Millionaire Next Door. However, we can have him join elsewhere. We're going to show you how in just a minute. So we're going to have a little welcome to Bill Denko, the co-author of The Millionaire Next Door, who's not here. We're going to have his testimonial right now.
Hi, I'm Nathan Osmond, singer, songwriter, motivational speaker, and even mortgage loan officer. I've known Dr. Bill Denko for over 20 years, and we've shared the stage at many great financial conferences the world over. Just recently, Dr. Bill Denko did a great Zoom call for my sales associates and shared some great principles from his New York Times longest best-selling list, The Millionaire Next Door, but also what it means to be richer than a millionaire. This is his new book, and I highly recommend it. The entire team at the Elite Team was very appreciative of Dr. Bill Denko's time and his insights, as he's a speaker that speaks with conviction from the heart. In fact, we ordered over 100 different copies of this book to give to our clients and our associates, because we truly believe that by studying this book, it can really help you to get through these turbulent times. This book is solid with research and survey research and empirical evidence that helps you to understand that yes, money is important, but money plus happiness is even better. I highly recommend that you go get a copy of this book today. You won't regret it.
Okay, so Bill Denko won't be joining us today, but I just wanted to have him show up. What we do have joining us today is Rick Rosner. Rick, welcome to the show.
Hey, sorry to be late. Windows decided to update, eating all my disk space.
Yeah, and they do so without your knowledge or consent. All of a sudden, poof, here's your update, and they don't even care about whether or not you're doing anything or not. Okay, but well, today's topic is on advertising, and the reason why I think that's important is that we're seeing demographic shifts into advertising, Rick, that the amount going into streaming has moved up from 2.6 billion to 18 billion from the years 2018 to 2022. As streaming media, if you check all the demographics, has taken more and more of the position over that. However, a lot of the streaming media, the way the advertising is structured, I'm just going to pick on YouTube because we're about to exit YouTube and treat YouTube how they treat us, and use YouTube only for commercials for our shows. So let me ask you this, since you're a smart guy, do you remember any of the YouTube commercials that you watched?
No, and no, it says you can quit the ad in 5 seconds, and I
Right.
either switch over to some other page,
Right.
or quit after 5 seconds.
Yeah. So is that an effective advertising strategy for anybody to advertise on YouTube? I know it's owned by Google, okay, and Google, of course, charges like the dollar per click for them is like the highest in the industry. But is YouTube really effective for anybody to advertise? Because no one, I can't remember. I do like you. I skip ads. I can't remember one thing that I saw on YouTube.
Well, I follow a guy on Twitter, a near future author, a guy who writes about the near future and also about contemporary tech, named Cory Doctorow. And I can't recommend him higher. And he does all sorts of segments on how streaming advertising is a huge scam. Now, everybody knows the principle that that we are the product.
Right.
We're the sitting ducks that that's why we get Twitter and YouTube and everything more or less for free, because we're being exploited. But in addition to that, there is a very scammy pricing structure that fools advertisers into thinking that advertising works.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the thing is, the way I see it is some of the ads, they don't work. And that people that buy into media ads are spending a lot of money. Here's what I think really does work, because I watched them do this on Google now, and of course Microsoft's doing it as well. They'll have the news clips there. Then they'll have another one that looks like a news clip, like credit cards are moving pretty fast, going down. Click on the story about credit cards. And Rick, it's not a story on credit cards. It's an ad to sell you to buy credit cards. And I think you can see that right now on all media structures. What they're doing is they're inserting placements into their structure that are really what they call infomercials. Have you noticed the power of the infomercial? Let's put it that way. That looks like and I have to admit we're guilty of doing that too. I've put my company on as an infomercial inside of our TV program, because the infomercials are more likely to be watched than a quick, dirty ad. So what are your thoughts about these infomercials that are going on right now?
Just from my own experience, I used to write for a late night show, and my boss, he loves, all forms of foolishness, including infomercials. Mm-hmm. And for a while, he would call up the infomercial company and say, put me in the background. So you could turn on a thing for some kind of exercise deal, and there'd be a bunch of women in leotards dancing around. And also my boss, because of course they book him because here's a huge celebrity dancing around in a leotard. Mm-hmm. But another thing my boss did was he liked it better if people were fooled by a piece of fake advertising that he'd made than if they laughed at it. He did a fake news report out of Sochi. Remember how terrible those Olympics were?
Right.
Packs of dogs wandering the street.
Mm-hmm.
So my boss built a hotel set and recruited an Olympic athlete she was already done competing, and they faked her having taken cell phone footage of wolves from the Russian, steppes, wandering the halls of this hotel. It was all fake, but it all went viral. People freaked out. I don't know. I mean, do I have a point? Probably forgot when I started, but people are vulnerable, and advertising only works when if you can get people to let their guard down.
Right. Yeah.
And so any medium, including infomercials, that or fake news reports that doesn't hit people's natural skepticism is going to be more effective.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. We're going to go down under and bring in Shaquille Latmer from Australia, and Mark might be joining us on this one too as well. Your favorite one, Mark Lee, has also joined us, who's our professional podcaster. We're also with Rick Grosner, who is part of the Mega Society, which I try to. Did you ever join the Mega Society, Rick, or not?
Yeah, no, the Mega. I mean, the high IQ societies are not the best in general.
I mean, they're full of dumbasses, right, Rick?
What's that?
I said they're full of dumbasses. That's certainly been my experience at Mensa.
Yeah, no, I went to Mensa meetings to see if I could get a girlfriend. And
you wanted to get the smart girl, huh?
Guys, it's blowhard guys. And everybody kind of had the same issue I did, that like we had no game, and we were hoping that Mensa would be a place where it wouldn't matter if you didn't have game. But there were very few women to not have game with.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify for the audience, we're not suggesting that women don't have high IQs or anything like that. I just want to mention about media streaming advertising. So for me personally, I've actually got a subscription to Google. I resisted having one for a very long time, but I ended up subscribing, and I've got one of my emails hosted by them because, we made some money out of them on the market. And like Netflix, I said, you know what, I'll always have some sort of subscription with them because, we made some money out of them on the market. When I've spoken to some people with some channels that have, hundreds of millions of views and 2, 3, 4 million subscribers, and they don't actually know exactly how the revenues are given to them. So for most of them, you actually have to click on the ad in order for them to get anything. And my question was, well, what happens to those people that subscribe? And there's some sort of secret algorithm that Google uses to give them funding. So I would echo what you said, Rick. It sounds sort of scammy, or at least it's very, very opaque as to how that revenue, is given to people. And I think what you're seeing now, a little bit on Instagram, but also on YouTube, what you're seeing now is people that halfway through their show will say, "Hey, I highly recommend." These eyeglasses are fantastic. It's ABC brand glasses. Go out and buy them. And if you use my code, you get 10% off discount. Now, the advertisers are doing that because they'd like to say to those influencers, look, we'll give you some money, but it's got to be revenue based. It's got to be if you drive people to our website, or if you drive people to purchase our product, then we will actually give you something. Give you some sort of remuneration. But free-to-air TV and newspapers have really had this issue. Is there any point in me sitting here in Australia as a person who sells eyeglasses? I don't, but just as an idea. I sell eyeglasses. Is there any point in me advertising the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or anything like that? Probably not. And so what ends up happening is you go those big companies like Coca-Cola that advertise. And I often question why they get these big celebrities to advertise for those big companies, because I don't think anybody's going to get out there and say, well, my favorite star is drinking Coca-Cola or Pepsi, so therefore I'm going to go and buy it. They just spend all this money. So I think advertising and the revenue that media generates is something that really has to be questioned and probably has to be modernized a bit.
Hold on a second, Shaquille. You mean you've not been buying to grab that big time drink, and I forget which one it is, because Snoop Dogg has been over there advertising it and all of that? Because I know when I was watching TV, I saw that he was, patrolling around the beach and talking about planting a garden tree that looked like him and all of that. But that's what they were using his name for. And I know that sometimes on our show we talk about different social agendas and social issues and everything. And I can't tell you how many times I picked up a newspaper and, somewhere in the newspaper is a full page ad, whether it's for the left or for the right, either for or against whatever the issue of the day is, whether that's the death penalty, abortion, definitely in Roe versus Wade, with Black Lives Matter, a number of other things that have been out there, even gun control issues and all of that. So do you think that people don't pay attention to those full page ads that have like probably tens of thousands of names, because it's usually just whatever the statement is and then a whole list of names?
No, not really. Not really. I don't think the media endorsements, especially in the political arena, I don't think that they do very much. And case in point was Hillary Clinton in 2016. She had every celebrity endorsement you could ever dream of, but she really didn't get anywhere, did she? Donald Trump won. I don't think that people look at somebody that they really like their song or they really like their movies and say, well, that person has a particular view on gun rights, I'm going to therefore change my opinion. They may pay a little bit of attention, but it's unlikely, I think, to sway them. And I think it's unlikely to sway their purchasing decisions either. If you actually say, we did a blood bank thing, and unfortunately COVID it got in the way. When you donate blood in Australia, you don't get paid for it. You might get a cookie and an apple juice, but that's about it. You don't get paid for it. It's purely voluntary. I'm a very, very big proponent of that. We did a blood bank drive that said if you went and gave blood, we would give you a heavily discounted ticket to a major show that we were doing with some celebrities. Now, that's something that will actually have a real-world application, but I think a celebrity saying, look, I don't agree with abortion. I don't think that's going to sway somebody. Celebrities generally as well always have a very, very similar opinion. And I just don't think the numbers count for that, Mark, to be honest.
No, I hear what you're saying and everything, but actually, as you were saying it, I was thinking of two things, and one isn't totally media related, because here in the States, and I can tell you definitely at near university towns, that whole idea of getting paid for donating your blood is something that some people make an entire living off of. And I also know people that make a living off of literally doing research studies. They would go and do, whether it's a sleep study or whether it's a paranormal study, because both of those are not that far from here in terms of institutions that do that research. And they'll drop a couple of $100s or whatever for people to do that. And sometimes there's even influencers that are telling them about those particular studies and all along those lines. But this whole notion,
I tell people all the time to go out and donate blood. Obviously, in America, we get paid for it. Hey, that's a bonus. Right. I personally, if I was a citizen or a green card holder of the United States, I would donate blood there, but I wouldn't accept the payment. I would just donate it back to the charity. I just wouldn't take the payment. That's just me personally, but I don't need the money. But in Australia, it's purely a voluntary. For something that's purely voluntary, fine. But a celebrity endorsement telling me to go and buy something, unless I see the value in it, I'm probably not going to buy it. So the only thing they're going to do is maybe bring my attention to it. But I think as well, it's worth noting that celebrities and big name people have to be a little bit careful as well that they don't fall into the trap of what's just happened with Matt Damon. And there's many other examples of this. Matt Damon has promoted, I think it's Coinbase, one of those crypto exchanges.
Yep.
And what's happened? The cryptocurrency has fallen quite dramatically. Mm-hmm. And of course, social media jumps up and says, "Well, there's a full born BOURNA born every minute and things like that." And so if you promote something that later on turns out not to be the best product or to perhaps not have great results, you end up perhaps damaging your own brand. And celebrities have to factor that in as well.
I hear you, but I guess my question for Rick is, how much, because definitely I've seen those people on Clubhouse. I've even been in rooms where they exist and everything, but how much influence do influencers really have? Because I can tell you that there are quite a few people that claim to be influencers, and sometimes they even want you to drop checks to them. Because I know of a certain young lady in California, and she's very active in Clubhouse, and she wants you to come in there and pay a certain amount of money for her to share her influence or her perceived influence, even though lately she's been catching a lot of flack because folks are like, I paid the money and I didn't get anything for that quote unquote influence. You claimed you're going to do this and claimed you're going to do that, and nothing happened in that realm. So are there like a lot of fake influencers, and what can we do to stop the fake influencers?
I'm not part of that world because my family doesn't let me go on Instagram because they don't want to be embarrassed because they know my content would be brutal.
Where can we follow you, Rick? Where can we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm dumbass genius. And I'm plenty embarrassing there to myself and everybody around me. I want to mention.
Do you think if I purse my lips and stick my bum out and go, do you think that anybody would give me some free product?
No, definitely. If it's you, definitely not.
Yeah, right.
But there are a lot of women that are doing that, and they're doing it regularly on Twitch. They're doing it regularly on Instagram and a number of other places, and they are in some cases making a pretty decent penny. I've been trying to talk to some of them coming onto the network so we can talk to them.
Yeah, right.
Some of the smartest people I follow on Twitter are sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
And then like unashamed sex workers who either have sex in a therapeutic environment or a dominatrix, or just people who do nudie pictures on OnlyFans.
They figured out how to monetize the internet. What are you supposed to say?
Well,
but Nick, I got a question for you because
I don't think anyone's going to subscribe to my OnlyFans account. I've got
we're going to get you some OnlyFans subscriptions and everything.
OnlyFans that want
to Shaquille, we're going to get you an OnlyFans page. We'll get Nick one as well. But I do have a question based on what we were talking about, because there was a major trial, and the trial did not go the way that a certain actress wanted it to go, and now she's blaming social media. So Amber Heard came out recently and said, even somebody who is sure I'm deserving of all this hate and vitriol, even if you think that I'm lying, you still can't tell me, look me in the eye and tell me that you think on social media there's been a fair representation. You cannot tell me that you think that this has been fair. So what do you say to Amber Heard, who is definitely, after she had that lovely trial with Johnny Depp and lost the trial, saying that social media roasted her and did not give her a fair picture and a fair trial on social media?
I'll respond after Rick.
Well, I mean, they both seem like a-holes.
Right.
But the misogyny seemed to put its finger on the scale between two a-holes. Like Johnny Depp seems like a charming, maybe drunk or just devil may care, slow talking, weirdo who plays weirdos. And Amber Heard is this very attractive young woman who might poop in your bed. And that's everybody's takeaway, and it's almost certainly not fair. I do want to talk about a couple forms of advertising that are one is very effective. One is targeting people who are losing their mental faculties. Now, my wife and I still have a landline. Landlines mostly belong to old people now.
You may have to explain what a landline is to most of our audience.
Young people won't know what you're
it's not. It's a phone that has a wire that goes right into your wall, and you leave it at home, and it
doesn't go like the cell. It stays it stays at the house.
I saw one at a museum.
Like one of these when it's still plugged into the charger. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, the cell phone still plugged into the charger. It's not a landline.
If you don't know what a landline is, go to your history museum. You'll see a landline.
So we basically have a phone system for old people, and we get pitches on the phone for old people. Scams like the grandma scam, where a young sounding person says, "Grandma, I'm in trouble. Send $10,000 to get me out of Mexican prison."
Right.
And there are lots of these scams. The IRS is calling you, a lawyer's calling you, you're being sued. And they're intentionally bad because they don't want to get, and if I pick up and I have a reasonably, competent, I don't sound like a feeble old person, they hang up. These old people advertise. This stuff targets people like my mother-in-law, who, before we moved her into a home, almost bought $20,000 worth of windows for no reason, except that somebody was targeting old people with this buy new windows pitch. And it's all, I would estimate that in America, there are, I don't know, 10 million people, mostly elderly, who are still in charge of their affairs, but don't have the mental acuity that they used to. And scammers, advertisers know this, and they target these people because, you know, somebody who's 78, who's 82 might also be sitting on a whole lot of money.
Right.
Because the boomers, you know, have all the money. And so they're a rich target. And I would say that certain forms of news media also do dumbed down presentations to capture people who are losing it. So I think it's a huge industry. I don't think it's been adequately explored as an industry, but the taking advantage of the old and the dumb.
Okay.
It's really interesting that those are the two topics brought up, because I went to the old man's place yesterday, being a Sunday night for me here in Western Australia, which I have barely been to in the last couple of years because of COVID. And the two news shows that were on was a dissection of Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, and the other one was people being taken advantage of in Australia, predominantly, for this news article, because of these cell phone scams. And I think banks probably need to step in and do a little bit more, especially when you're seeing an odd transaction, a transaction from somebody who's a little bit older, where they're transferring a lot of money overseas. Maybe the bank should hold that. Maybe they should actually contact the person, ask them to come into the branch and discuss what's going on before they release the payments. There's certain things that should be done, because this is a $40 billion industry, and a lot of that money is being scammed out of the United States. I will just say, in relation to Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, Rick, you made the comment about about the sort of evil head of misogyny coming up here, but I have to say, look, what would have happened if it was the opposite? The Me Too movement and the new feminists in the world would have crucified Johnny Depp, and there's no question that Amber Heard would have quite happily sailed on that. That's why she published that article. She was hoping for all of that support from the feminist groups and perhaps some of the more left groups out there that say believe all women. She would have been more than happy to see his reputation be crucified. And so the idea that she wasn't crucified, that he wasn't crucified and that she was criticized was down to misogyny, I think is a poor one. That didn't happen with Rose McGowan and Weinstein and Weinstein's other victims. That didn't happen there. Bill Clinton still gets some criticism, and Monica Lewinsky is a little bit more respected today, especially when people hear, look, she was a 22-year-old kid. People have a different view of that today than what they did 20 years ago. Our views have changed a lot. And I think that the idea that she was criticized so heavily for things like my dog stepped on a bee and those sorts of memes that have gone around solely because of misogyny, I don't think that's fair. I think that when people go in the public sphere and they have a very, very public complaint, you're going to be made fun of. And she got made fun of, and people did not believe her. And I don't think that that's only because of misogyny.
I'm going to change. I'm going to agree with you. I think she did a lot of, I only have a vague impression of the stuff, the various stuff they did, except for the pooping. But there's a charisma gap between her and Johnny Depp, among other things. So it's not necessarily misogyny. It's that people like Johnny Depp and they don't like her.
Yeah, but I got you on that. But yeah, I did watch some of the trial. He did admit that and everything, and I did watch some of that online and everything. And there was some serious self-mutilation that was going on as well, and even threats of other kinds of mutilation and all along those lines, because I was not thinking that was even Johnny Depp's kind of personality. I knew he was kind of out there, and I knew he definitely had some interesting personalities. But when I was hearing about some of these self-mutilations, I was going like, oh, that just sounds scary that you want to cut yourself in that way and everything. And I do know that there are even people that are considered cutters that like to do that for whatever reason and all along those lines. But do you think that some of that sensationalism is also what played up in the trial? Because definitely that's some of the things that I remember hearing about was some of this self-mutilation that Johnny was doing on himself.
Well, a big question I think there is coming back to advertising and media, is what kind of advertiser wants to advertise, as footage of the trial is coming out. I mean, if you're Amber Heard, your lawyer gets 18 consecutive questions objected to and sustained. Does a law school advertise? Is that something, Nick, that your law school might say, hey, look, if you'd like to learn how to be a better lawyer, come to our law school? I mean, who's going to advertise on that?
Well, actually, I believe Johnny Depp's lawyer did really well off of this.
Of course she did.
But
did Amber Heard's? Heard's
losing lawyers never do very well off of that. It's the winning.
Some do.
Yeah.
Some losing lawyers still look good. The case where you guys are from, I'm not sure where you are, Rick, but the Raleigh, the Durham, North Carolina case.
He's in the left coast. He's in California, if I remember correctly.
He's over in California, where the good weather is. But yes, the case, the staircase with Michael Peterson, which is
the staircase, that happened to where we're at.
The lawyer originally lost that case, and even now at the end where he took an Alford plea, would you say that's a win? Maybe it's luck, who knows? Yeah. But that lawyer has done very, very well out of it.
Well, so you can have the Trump attitude when it comes to publicity. All publicity is good, even if it's stupid.
But Nick, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually one of the groups that they are saying are winning big time. That's what the groups are saying, they're winning big time on social media, because they are saying that a certain group that is very much and I can argue that probably Black Lives Matter would be in this category as well, but definitely they're saying that, quote unquote, and this was in network news story, white supremacists are rallying up thousands on social media. So apparently they're getting on places like Instagram, Telegram, TikTok, and a number of others, and putting up all kinds of crazy memes and all kinds of crazy things. And they're saying that the CIA and the FBI are behind the mass shootings, and they are reveling in the prospect of a quote unquote white boy summer. So definitely there's all kinds of interesting things.
We have to clarify what you mean by white supremacist, right? In the eyes of you guys, I should absolutely love and adore Kamala Harris, because I am ethnically Indian, even though I'm 10 generations away from there. I run a hedge fund. I'm involved in media. I've produced anti-suicide teen videos for in California. I know a lot of celebrities, but I don't really agree with lots of regulations, and I don't agree with high taxes. So because I don't agree with high regulations and high taxes, and because I'm not going to change my predominantly lifelong views on the correct system of governance that we should have, that therefore, according to you guys, means I'm a white supremacist because I have a different view to the one of Kamala Harris. So when you say that there's white supremacists rallying people, what exactly do you mean by white supremacists? It's just
I'm talking about sites that are neo-Nazis. I've never heard you say that you were a neo-Nazi. So these are shooters that have claimed to be introduced to neo-Nazi websites and everything through some of these types of sources.
Mark, I get accused of it when I was in London last time, and this is back when I had my long, luscious hair. I was in London, and there was a Brexit Remain rally that was happening, and they were flying an Israel flag. And I was just sort of standing there at the front of the Hilton Hotel in Mayfair, and I sort of looked at the flag and thought, I don't understand. What does Israel have to do with Brexit remaining or staying? I'm not sure what the connection is. And somebody overheard me saying that and walked up to me and called me a skin-headed neo-Nazi when I've got long hair down to my butt.
Yeah.
Well, I personally would have asked you.
You're not wearing an Auschwitz T-shirt to storm the U.S. Capitol. Those guys are white nationalists.
But Rick, I would suggest to you that neither are the people that Mark says are these great cabal of white supremacists that are rallying up support for Donald Trump. What it is that people support Donald Trump or don't support the Democrats, and not everybody who doesn't support the Democrat is a white supremacist.
No, but there's been a huge uptick in the past 5 years in racially motivated, hate crimes.
Yes.
And and obviously, like 40% of the country still supports Trump, and most of those people are good people. We're talking about the trouble with America. One problem with America is we have 1/3 of a billion people. So even like if the 1 in 100,000 level of a-hole means that there are 3,000 people who are bigger jerks than the 99,999 people out of 100,000. It's a big country, lots of room for scary jerks.
Yeah,
I've noticed in my time in the United
States,
States,
much bigger than Australia. You just have to get that.
I've noticed in my time in the United States,
bigger.
go through the north, the south. Obviously, I spent a lot of time in California, and I've spent a lot of time on the west coast, on the east coast as well. I noticed that when I'm there as somebody who's not American, and I talk to people all over the country, and I'm like, "What is going on? Explain this to me." I noticed that the view that each individual group has of people of the other group are completely different. You find, for example, in California, that they'll talk about things like homelessness, and they'll talk about things like medical care, and their impression of Republicans, especially in the sort of rural Republicans, is that they're all sort of these redneck hillbillies, and they're just racist, and they don't care. Well, when you actually go into those country areas of the United States, and again, as a foreigner, I hear things from them that they won't say necessarily to fellow Americans. And they'll say to me, look, of course we care about those things, but at the moment, this issue and this issue and this issue is more important to me right now. And that's something that I find very fascinating about America, is that for the country to be as divisive as it has been the last time I was there, it's even more divided now from what I'm seeing from abroad. And I'll find this out in August when I'm back. What people in America think is so divisive, and how divided they are versus reality are two different things. Most Americans are not that far apart on their core ideas and values. It's just that they're prioritizing certain things over other things. And what ends up happening is that politicians take those minor differences and take them to really, really far extremes. That's been my observation. I really wish that Americans would find a little bit of love and common ground with their fellow American, rather than just assuming that everybody who doesn't agree with them is their enemy.
Because Shaquille, hold on just really quickly. I'm actually going to agree with you on something you just said.
And if they did that, the media would be out of business, Nick.
No, Shaquille, I'm actually going to agree with something that you just said. I'm going to agree with something you just said, but put a different twist on it. That's actually something that I brought up. I think I brought it up when we had Marianne on that show and everything as well. Because I would actually argue that that same can be said for our religious institutions, because I actually don't think that, if we think about it, there is that much difference overall in the core principles between, let's say, somebody that wants to practice Islam and somebody that wants to practice one of the various denominations of Christianity, or somebody that wants to practice, and yet there are various denominations of Islam as well, or wants to practice Hinduism or any of the other world religions. I would even argue some of the religions that people consider fringe, like Yoruba, and some of the other ones that are out there, and the Druids and everything. Because I think at the end of the day, most people want core respect for their family, respect for Mother Nature, respect for a lot of other core principles. But then I think that the extremes in the church also get caught in this extreme politics that you're talking about and everything. And that's where the problem becomes and everything. Because I actually think that there is a lot more similarity between the different religions than there is differentiations.
You've heard me have a big crack at conservatives, and they're generally the backers of my funds. Right. And half my family are Muslim and half my family are Anglican Christians. So I do cop it from both sides of my family, but there is a level of respect there. Right. But the same dichotomy that you're talking about is what I think is prevalent in the US. Rick,
right now there's too much money and power associated with sowing division. We could talk about gerrymandering, but I don't want to. I do want to talk about we haven't had a charismatic president since Obama. Like I talked about the charisma gap between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, but Hillary Clinton and Trump had historically low levels of historically high negatives. They both just were off-putting to a bunch of people.
Hey, Rick, there are some that would argue that we probably only had 3 charismatic presidents total, and I would name 1 Republican and maybe 2 Democrats, because there were some people. There were some people that would say.
Ronald Reagan would give you JFK. Is that it? What about Bill Clinton?
JFK.
No, I was going to say JFK. I was going to say JFK, Ronald Reagan, and Obama. Those are going to be my 3.
You don't think that Richard Nixon was charismatic?
Clinton pretty charismatic.
I didn't really find Richard Nixon all that charismatic.
Clinton, I mean, even after the sex stuff, his approval was super high. George W. Bush, kind of misled us into a war. People still like him. He seems like an affable guy. Now he's retired and he paints puppies. But
I don't know that I would consider your nice uncle, because I would put Theodore Roosevelt in the nice uncle category. I don't know that your nice uncle is charismatic. Charismatic is something totally different.
All right, but like, look at Biden. Biden, well-meaning, the most experienced president in history, but he's 79 now, and he looks scary, and he speaks haltingly, and it's even if you support him, he's a little hard to love.
But speaking of hard to love, and I want to come back to our media conversation. I'm throwing back to.
I think the vice presidents as well actually actually play a part in this. So Bill Clinton had a decent VP. Ronald Reagan obviously had a VP that wasn't quite as charismatic as him, but it would be difficult to do. Yeah. Kamala Harris, she seems to be off-putting to a lot of people. But Mike Pence, he was very, very dry. He didn't say anything too controversial, but he was very, very dry. It's kind of hard to go, I really like Mike Pence. You don't have to dislike the man. He just, you're not going to flock out in support of him. And that's the thing when it comes to charismatic. You need to have people, not just the president, but also the VP, without the VP showing you up. I think that's probably quite important.
Yeah, man, it's good even to have charismatic appeal, even in some of the other positions. I would argue that there have been senators, some that I liked and some that I did not like, that had some charisma with them and everything. I don't know that I think Nancy Pelosi's got all that much charisma, but I did think that Tipper O'Neill had some charisma, and there were some others in the whole House and Senate that had some charisma as well on both sides of the aisle. Because I would actually argue that
Nancy had some 20 years ago. Nancy's getting a bit old now, but
right.
she did have some charismatic charm, 20, 30 years ago when she first started in her career. It probably took her 5 or 10 years to warm up. But, she did have, she used to make good speeches. And I'm not saying I agree with them or disagree with them, but she made good speeches and she was able to bring people. Like a lot of those, big Democrats, Maxine Waters, for example.
Yeah, Maxine Waters is another one.
She's got charisma. I don't agree with a lot of her policies, but she's got charisma.
AOC has charisma, and I know you agree with all her policies.
Oh, absolutely. Except for saying that Republicans just want to date her. I'll pass on that one.
I'm trying to get Maxine to come on the show, because he actually has some connections with Fernando and some other people, including the homeless advocate that I did have on. I think that was last week or the week before. So that is still an ongoing conversation. So hopefully we'll get her on before she retires and before she's totally, maybe not even on the planet and everything. But I had a quick question for.
She hasn't been on the planet for years, Mark.
But I had a quick question for definitely the lovely Nick and all of that. And it's a very quick question, because I'm going to be perfectly honest. Part of what they were saying about the white supremacists and everything was that some of these memes that they were doing, and it's just a question for both Nick and Rick, were kind of snarky and sarcastic and things along those lines. And believe it or not, and I'm sure that Shaquille has picked up on this, I'm actually a fan of snarkiness and sarcasm. So I actually might even enjoy some of their memes and everything. So I might even go try to watch some to see what they're all about and if they're really as snarky and sarcastic as they think they are. So my question to both of you, but I'll start with Nick, is does snarkiness and sarcasm work and all of that in terms of a media play? Because like I said, they might even get me to watch, and I really do not like the views of the white nationalists, but I do like satire and I do like snarkiness. So I might just watch to see what the snarkiness is.
Well, here's the thing I agree with Rick on, okay, because our country's so large and media plays up to divisiveness because people watch, they love murders, they like divisiveness, all this other stuff, that they get a lot more play than they're out there. I can tell you, I've actually never run into one of them. You know, and you think you say, hey, well, I grew up in Tampa, I lived in Atlanta, I lived in New York, lived in Seattle, lived in Bellingham. You say, well, how many white supremacists have you met in your lifetime? Mark, I've met zero. Okay, so I know they're out there only because I see them on television. But if you said, I'm serious. Okay, if you say,
but
you met one? Do you know
Nick, if there's a big ass sign on the way to a certain city, not that far from here.
Well, maybe there's some in North Carolina. I don't know. I haven't met
No, there's a big ass sign. There's a big sign in Selma that used to say, "Welcome to the land of the KKK." I don't know if the sign's still there because I'm not a transportation person, but I'm talking to my friends that go there and everything. But that sign was recent. It was there recently.
I've never met a KKK member. I mean,
that was false advertising because the South got rid of the Democrats.
Maybe the white supremacists are where they live, where
being the home of the KKK. But let me just answer your core question about memes, snarky and sarcastic. What do you think the meme's going to be? It's supposed to be snarky and sarcastic. It wouldn't be a meme otherwise. And I can tell you, I see a lot of memes every day. People send them to me, that sort of stuff. I've never known the identity of the person that's created the meme. So for you to conclude that these memes are being created by these white nationalists, how is it that you're able to determine the identity of the meme creators?
I assume it's because it's coming from white nationalist sources.
No, what you assume is that because it's going to have a crack at the Democrats, it must have come from white nationalists.
No, they said it was coming from the sources. The sources were white nationalist.
Yeah, but how do they know that? How do they know that? That's nonsense. Rick, over to you.
I mean,
how is it nonsense if the website advertises itself as such?
You know, I mean, some memes come from Russia, but I don't want to go into that. I want to mention that snarkiness is a relatively recent part of the American fabric.
Right.
That Saturday Night Live came on the air in 1975. Before then, there was really no mass media source of satire. You had Mad Magazine starts up 1950.
Mad was a little sarcastic.
Yeah. So Mad Magazine in the 50s, but, you know, a very small readership of kids who later grew up to become, you know, comedians and producers of media. National Lampoon starts up in around 72. But again, you know, it's a very, small group of people reading it. SNL, and then just the whole snarky kind of, you know, that's
now a quick question for you. Was SCTV before or after SNL? Because I always get my history mixed up and all of that. But I do know that was Canadian snarkiness, but I can't remember whether they were before SNL or after SNL.
Simultaneous. They both kind of drew from the same talent pool. It was discontent with Vietnam. It was, the generation gap.
And Laughing. Let's not forget Laughing. Laughing was snarky, and that was the 60s.
Yeah.
I didn't see enough Laughing to know whether it was really effective in its, or did it?
I would argue they were effective.
It did good in the ratings.
I would argue they were effective. As were what was the ones that were very much against the Vietnam War? The Smothers Brothers.
Yeah. They were doing okay on the ratings, but the closest I've run into these white supremacists, I was actually campaigning for Bloomberg in North Carolina, and some redneck comes with his pickup
truck. You did
truck.
What? I did not know this. We will not.
I was campaigning for Bloomberg, and this redneck comes up in his pickup truck and flashes his guns and say, "Get out of here! This is Trump country." And I wasn't going to go anywhere because I'm used to that stuff. I grew up in that stuff. So But the person I was working with said, "Oh, we got to go because this is now a dangerous situation." So we left the area.
A Trump supporter came by.
Yeah, he said, flashed his gun
gun.
at us and said, "You guys need to get out of here. This is Trump country." I was in some rural place in North Carolina. You know, I'd be like this.
Could you put Nick on the Jimmy Kimmel show? I think this is.
I don't even know who Jimmy Kimmel is. I don't watch late night shows. That's what Rick does. I don't do that stuff.
Hey, but hold on a second. You just brought up a question to me and everything, because I think I asked this last time, but I don't remember Rick being here and whether he answered the question because it was one of our regular news shows. Biden was just recently on the Jimmy Kimmel show. Did that do anything for Biden in terms of his ratings, or will it help his ratings? Because Biden was on there, I think it was last Friday or last Thursday.
Oh, I can address this. I can address this.
Right.
All right. So when Johnny Carson had the Tonight Show, 30 million people tuned in each night.
Right.
In a country that only had half the population it does now. Now a decent late night talk show might get 1 million people. It's a fragmented audience. But I just want to go back to, I've met a zillion white supremacists and I found them very disappointing. I used to check IDs in a biker bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I look pretty Jewish, and these guys would, bikers would come past me with the 88 tattoos, the occasional swastika, the SS, all this stuff. Obviously, very racist stuff. Nobody was ever mean to me, and I was very a little annoyed. It's like, hey, I'm Jewish here. You should, if you're gonna be living up to your tattoos, you should be saying something mean to me. It's like, but Southern California white supremacists can't even identify a Jew adequately.
Yeah, well, the thing is that all I see in white supremacists, they're really, when you see them, it's a bad argument for white supremacy. That's all. In other words, the evidence, I go, if that's supreme, then we got a real big problem in this world. But of course, I don't hang around biker bars. I hang around chess players when I was younger. All I did is go to chess tournaments. And
you ever been to Shooters? Next time we go to the Washington Duke, we'll make a stop at Shooters, because it's either Shooters or Long Branch. It's one of those. Like Long Branch is Raleigh, Shooters is Durham, but they've actually got the Mechanical Bull. So we'll see if we can get you on the Mechanical Bull as well. But that is considered a quote unquote bikers type bar.
Oh, really? Yeah. See, I didn't hang around bikers bars, Mark. Sorry. I did hang around a lot of chess tournaments, and when they had that crazy thing, was the Queen's Gambit, they showed the cult as it existed.
Maybe in 7 weeks when I make my way over to the US, maybe in 7 weeks' time, maybe you can take me through these so-called biker bars, Nick.
Well, Shaquille, I've got a plan for you. Me and you are going to meet at the bikers bar, and I'm going to see if I can't get Mike Peterson to come there at the same time. So Mike Peterson, you and me at the bikers bar. It'll look like the scene from Eddie Murphy and the time that he went in there. So it'll look like that scene, but it should be fun.
I don't even know where the bikers bars are.
Michael Peterson, and Shooters over there in downtown Durham. You like the idea, Shaquille?
Sounds great. Now, Rick, if you were anywhere near Beverly Hills or Marina Del Rey, that's where I'll be in 10 weeks from now. I'll be over there.
You can take him to a biker's bar. You should do that, Rick, because Shaquille doesn't believe in white supremacy, so you need to take him to this biker's bar.
This was a very posh biker bar.
Upscale biker bar.
These were the rich bikers.
The rich
bikers. It was a biker bar where you might see Howie Mandel or even Springsteen one time. So it was, yeah.
I see. Okay, hey, Shaquille, you need to take your Bentley to go to the biker's bar.
This place had, if you were a movie development exec and you had a $35,000 tricked out Harley, you only rode on the weekends, you'd go to this joint.
Okay, all right. So it's upscale. So Shaquille,
I thought Shaquille had a helicopter. I was actually thinking about Shaquille when I was watching. And I'm trying to think of the insurance company, but the insurance company's got the ostrich as part of their whole advertising. Emu is the slogan for the particular insurance company that I'm thinking about.
Liberty Mutual.
Thank you. But they were doing a whole commercial where the guy is playing with the helicopter and his boss is like, nope, you're not getting a helicopter. But I thought Shaquille already had a helicopter, because I know that's one of the commercials, along with the commercial about emu marriages.
I normally only fly in helicopters between around LA or between Nice and Monaco. You guys have an Australian emu on one of your insurance ads. What, don't you have enough ostriches in the United States?
No, there's a big thing on this Liberty Mutual's emu.
Because
Same with the league.
EU rhymes with Liberty Mute, the abbreviation of
They think
Liberty
it
Mutual.
does, you know.
Emu, Liberty Mew. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Something
So
like
I
that.
want to mention one more form of advertising, which is surveillance advertising, where your phone or your other devices listen to you and then they throw ads at you based on what you mentioned.
Yep.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Then they track you. Wow. I mean,
They get
that's
a lot of-
become pretty sophisticated.
But mine, I don't know what it does because it 1 minute it shows me dancers from the United States. Next minute it shows me rifles that I'm allowed to buy in Australia. The next minute it shows me tax write-offs that I can get. But I think mine's a little bit confused.
I
Yeah,
think.
I'm surprised, Shaquille. I'm surprised because I've mentioned a couple of times that when I was a child, I was part of a university that was associated with Malcolm X. So I'm surprised you're not getting Malcolm X T-shirts because I mentioned it a couple of times. So I'm expecting you to get Malcolm X T-shirts and Malcolm X paraphernalia because I've mentioned that a couple of times that it was based here in Durham and everything. So I'm expecting that because you are a friend of mine that you should be getting these Malcolm X.
I don't get Malcolm X, but I do get that other black guy who's a Republican. I get a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, well, the thing is, see, Shaquille, they use cookies to track you and artificial intelligence to determine what you like, and then they send you the ad. Now, in normal people, they'll send them the right ad. To you, you're not normal, and that's the problem. So you're getting ads that they haven't been able to figure out yet, but it's going to take a while before AI.
As I said, I do get some Martin Luther King stuff.
They give you discounts to the French law.
I do get and I actually had links to buy merchandise for the Democrats and Republicans, and maybe May, who buys political stuff all over the world. I've clicked on it once, and it looked at my IP and said, "No, you're not American. You can't buy it," which is very interesting because I've actually got political memorabilia from all over the world. Pretty much except for the United States. The only stuff I've got in the United States is stuff that I've bought while I was there. Can't buy the stuff here, and I'm an equal hater of both sides of politics in every country. So I buy stuff from both sides, and the United States won't sell me any of it. So
hey, Rick, I know we're going to wind down and everything, but what's the possibility that I can get a one of those lovely boxes? I would go for the ladies as well, but I know that that's too costly. But one of those lovely bags that had the $1 million in it, because I just want a suitcase that had the $1 million on that $1 million show and everything. So what's the possibility that I can get one of those?
30 to 1, I think they had 30 briefcases.
Yeah.
Okay.
So somebody said the AI. Nick said the AI is not very good yet.
Not yet. No, it's
like you buy a washing machine and then you get a bunch of ads for washing machines, but you just buy them.
Yeah, I know.
If it gets good, then whoa Nelly.
Yeah. But they're working on it. So AI is tracking you wherever you're going, and then they're using it to target the ad that they believe that you're going to buy. And
I click on bikinis, so I get bikini lady pop-ups all the time.
Sure.
Hasn't, after 10 years of this, hasn't figured out that I've never bought a bikini.
Yeah.
this is what's going wrong for me, because every time I come onto a show and I'm going to talk about Black Lives Matter, transgenderism, etc. So I Google all this stuff to find out what's happening, and then I get ads for all sorts of things that I'm really not into. So this explains a few things.
Well, I thought you were into Australian drag queens. That's what I heard.
Well, I know some, but I'm definitely not.
Oh, you know drag queens. See, that's another group of people.
He's getting ads for the wigs. That's what he's getting. He's getting products for the wigs so he can become a drag queen. That's what those products are that Shaquille is saying that he doesn't understand why he's getting them. So he's going on the trans site, and then he's getting advertisements for the wigs.
Okay.
This face and body would look amazing in a dress and a wig.
In a dress and a wig. Okay. Well, the thing is, see, you know drag queens. I don't. But the people you associate with are different. The ones I associate with Shaquille. So I don't hang out with the drag queens or the white supremacist or all this other stuff.
I do enjoy San Francisco, one of my favorite cities in the world. So that says it all.
Well, they have a lot of money there.
And the ferry ride across to Alcatraz is beautiful. And that island is gorgeous. And California doesn't look after that island. They should sell Alcatraz to me.
Yeah. So that'd be pretty good. Well, with that, we're at the hour, so we're going to have to go. We don't want to thank our guest, Shaquille Lattimore from Down Under, Mark Lee, who's with the IBM TV Network, and Rick Rosner with the Mega Society. Someday we'll tell people what that really is. Most people don't know what it is, but I know what it is. I've watched the Mega Society. Okay, and we'll see you next week on the media on the IBM TV Pod TV Network. Until then, have a good week. Bye-bye.